was beautiful. And it's such a joy to be with you. Just even yesterday, I arrived from Canada, so I was just walking around. Every time I came across a big redwood tree, I would just pause and be like, whoa, these are big and beautiful. And there's something about nature that just right sizes you. Am I right? Just right size, like you're like, oh yeah, it's big and I'm not that big. Like, even though I think and I keep imagining I'm the center of the universe, turns out I'm not. And there's nothing like being in an environment like this and being in an environment like this, even with your kids, to help right size you. Yeah, whew. Boy, do we need that. Boy, do we need that. So even as we were worshiping, my family, my husband and my two younger boys have driven to San Francisco airport to pick up my eldest son, who's arriving after 6 months of being away in Sweden with a YWAM DTS training. And so we're all, like my little 10-year-old, he's just like, if that plane doesn't come last night, he's like, I'll just walk across the ocean floor. Like, we're literally like all night, they just could not wait to see their elder brother who they love with all their heart. And I was thinking, just as we were singing that song, I was thinking about that longing inside of us to be reconciled, to be brought close to one that we love. And I was thinking how, it's just a taste of the truest longing of our heart, right? Just the truest longing of my heart to be connected, to be reconciled, to be held by, to be known by, to be loved by, to be with the King of Glory. And what that longing, that desire, I'm just praying, even as we were worshiping, I was just praying that longing would just take a grip in our heart again, that we wouldn't be afraid to long for that connection with Jesus, who is alive and with us in this place, and all week long, that we would not just want to know more stuff. I've got a hunch that knowledge isn't our problem. I think most of our problems are in our hearts. And so just to open our hearts, to the King of Glory. What a remedy that would be. So many years ago, I lived and worked in the downtown east side of Vancouver, Canada. That's a drug-addicted community. It's a really broken. I was living incarnationally, and we were trying to just kind of partner with God in what it was that the kingdom would look like in that sort of a place. And I met a friend there. Her name is Annie. She's dual diagnosis, so she's mentally ill and she's drug-addicted. So they call that double the trouble. And every now and then I would try to go find Annie, and she would be gone. And I would have to look for her in a psych ward, because they would just take her for whatever reason. I never really fully understood, but she would be on this in a psych ward. So I went to the psych ward to visit Annie. And I remember meeting her there, and her, just running, going, so happy to see me, giving me a bear hug, and then saying, Danielle, you've got to come with me and see the craft room here. It's epic. And I was like, okay. She's like, this is the best craft room. They have all the colors. I was like, okay, awesome. So she takes me by the hand, and she takes me into this craft room in the psych ward in the downtown east side of Vancouver. And she's like, I got to show you what I've done. I want to show you my work. And I was a little nervous. Maybe you get like this with your kids, where I'm hoping I'm going to recognize the work, right? And know what it is and stuff like that. And I was amazed, because when I walked into the craft room, I saw that she had taken one of those table papers, the scrolls of paper that you line tables with. She had taken that, and she just covered up everybody else's art with this massive table roll. And on it, she had just written in big, black, bold letters, she had written this: "What will you do with the King of Israel?" I'm like, what's happening right now? What, just big black, if you don't know, that's from Psalm 2. Literally Psalm 2. It's and the psalmist is saying, why do the nations even bother plotting against God? Why are the nations raging, trying to take some sort of control from God? Why do they not know? This is the psalmist asking, don't they know that God just sits in heaven and laughs? Look, just a redwood tree's probably laughing. Forget about God, the glory of God, the sovereignty of God. God is sovereign. Don't they know he's sitting, he's laughing? What will you do with the King of Israel? Might be the most important question of our lives. What will we do with God? What will we do? And then she had taken these little red crayons, and she had written at the very bottom in little tiny red letters, "Kiss the Son. Kiss the Son." Which of course is the answer to the question. What will we do with the bigness? What will we do with the grandness? What will we do with the King of Israel? Well, we're going to kiss the Son. Those big, grand, important, scary questions are answered in the tiniest, smallest embracing of the person of Jesus. Every single time. So if you have these big, scary, bold, black letter questions, like what are we going to do post-COVID? What are we going to do in this world? What are we going to do with a church? What are we going to do with a culture? What are we going to do with our kids? What are we going to do with the generational, like what are we going to do with racial injustice? Like what are we going to do with, you fill in the blank. There's a lot. There's a lot of raging. What are we going to do? Well, the answer remains the same. Kiss the Son. Kiss the Son. Kiss the Son. The answer is Jesus. It's the real answer. I know it's so cheesy. At camp, Jesus, love, the Bible. Jesus is really, truly the answer to the biggest questions that we have. So I thought in this season, I was just last week at a camp training the staff, and I was saying to them, they're all about 18 to 25 years old, but about 300 of them. I said to them, what are the biggest questions? What are the biggest concerns? What are the biggest problems in your generation? And literally, they were the most well-spoken. One of them just said, the complete erosion of public trust. That's a big problem. One of them said just like a constant anxiety that leads to despair. I'm like, yeah, I feel that one. I feel that one too. One of them said just this like comparison killing my life's value. I mean, it went on like that for a while. I was like, these are some big problems. And these are some big questions. And there's some things that are facing us. And we can like pretend like they don't face us. Or we can face them with the answer. With the solution, which is that we don't have to be afraid of the questions. We don't have to be afraid of the problems because we actually have this invitation. We have this availability. We have this solution. We have this relationship with Jesus that is an invitation for us to kiss the Son. That's what we're going to do. We're going to find a place with God. We're going to find our place reconciled and held to belong to the one who is Christ. And so I want to read these words from Colossians chapter 1. This is the Apostle Paul who's talking to the people in Colossae who are also facing some pretty stinking big questions about the existence of the church, about the culture they're in. They're in the midst of a culture that is in the throes, like just in the highlight of emperor worship. So this is what's happening. And even just them being Christians is going to actually put them at risk in this culture. And he says, so what are we going to do? Well, he says we're going to look at Jesus. I'm going to read this from the Message version just to keep it fresh for you. If you're reading it from the Bible in the pew, it's great. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. I mean, many of you might even know this. This is Colossians 1:15. But this is what the Message version says. We look at this Son, Jesus, and see the God who cannot be seen. We look at this Son and see God's original purpose in everything created. For everything, absolutely everything, above and below, visible and invisible, rank after rank after rank of angels, everything got started in him and finds its purpose in him. Everything, redwood trees included. He was there before any of it came into existence and holds it all together right up to this moment. And when it comes to the church, he organizes and holds it together like a head does a body. He was supreme in the beginning and leading the resurrection parade. He is supreme in the end. From beginning to end, he's there, towering far above everything and everyone. So spacious is he, so expansive. Do you want me to change the mics? I've just got a lot of wind here. Okay, we're good. So spacious is he, so expansive. Oh, listen, listen to this. So spacious is he, so expansive, that everything of God finds its proper place in him without crowding. Not only that, wouldn't it be amazing if we understood this as a church who kind of tries to elbow our way into the heart of God? There's no crowding. It's so spacious is he, that everyone can find. And then listen, there's not only that, but all the broken and dislocated pieces of the universe. Somebody say universe. Just in case you thought, this world was on fire and too big for us. Every broken and dislocated piece of the universe, people and things, animals and atoms, get properly fixed and fit together in vibrant harmonies, all because of his death, his blood that poured down from the cross. Whoa! What? I mean, so God is sovereign and Jesus is Lord. And when we say Jesus is Lord, we're not just saying like, oh, Jesus is Lord, so everything's going to be okay. We're saying he is so much bigger than. He is so beyond our comprehension. He is so he is so spacious that we don't have to be afraid and we don't have to be concerned. As a matter of fact, we can find our place. Not only can Christ find his place in our heart, we, our whole lives, our families, our churches, our communities can find their place in him. That's how big Christ is. Not just Christ in you. Yes, Christ in you. Let him into your heart. He wants to be a part of your whole being. But also, you can find your place in Christ. That's how big Jesus is. It's mind-blowing. So I was thinking about this age in which we're in and all of these confusions and all of these anxieties and the centrality of Jesus. And I was thinking about this trip that I had about 4 years ago. I went to Vienna, and I'll show you here. This is St. Stephen's Cathedral. This is the #1 tourist attraction in Vienna. And I was there for a 70-year anniversary of what they call the Night of Mercy. The Night of Mercy was when the Nazis had taken over Austria. And they had banned all public gatherings, particularly in churches, because they were trying to put out any resistance to the Nazi occupation. And the cardinal at the time of this church called, in defiance of that order, called a prayer meeting at the church. About 9,000, mostly young people, flooded to this church to pray that God would actually liberate Austria and defeat the Nazis. It actually sparked the resistance movement in Austria against them. When they were praying, this is what they prayed. The cardinal had this famous line. This was the title of his sermon was, "We have one Führer, and his name is Jesus." As soon as that was announced, it was on the public radio, right? So 9,000 people are gathered here. He makes this declaration of Jesus is Lord. This is very similar to Colossians feeling like you're banned from worship if you don't say Caesar's Lord. All empires work this way, by the way. It's just like Empire 101, right? We're just going to try to put out faith. We're going to try to put out resistance to darkness by declaring you're not allowed. And Christians of all time have been saying, oh no, we have an authority that's higher than yours. Right? Jesus is sovereign. There is only one Lord, and his name is Jesus. So this is what he says. And the Nazi youth, about 100 Nazi youth come and try to, they arrest people, they beat people, they try to destroy this church. As a matter of fact, you can see some of the black on this church. They tried to destroy it by fire. That church was built out of brick, so good luck. But they did actually cause a lot of damage on some artifacts and some artwork, particularly this one. I'll show you. This is a crucified Christ. If you can see on this, now they kept all the artifacts and they didn't repair them. They kept them damaged. And they put them back in the church as sort of replicas of this time of their history. Now, if you can see Jesus, the Nazi youth came in destroying some things, and they've taken their bayonets and they tried to destroy this picture. But look where they've pierced Christ. Literally, I don't know if you can see it clearly, but they actually just took their bayonets and they pierced Christ's body with their bayonets. These are the I don't know if you can see, like on his thighs and on his calf. And it's fascinating, isn't it, that you wouldn't just destroy this painting, but you would just, you would just, so 70 years later, the church is still standing. Hitler, not so much. Nazis nowhere to be found. Well, at least, yeah. Jesus alive and well. And when I stood on the platform, I was preaching that night, this night of mercy. About 9,000 people were there from all around the nations to commemorate this moment where the church just caught a glimpse of the sovereignness of Jesus. Just lived a different way. Just said, no, we're not going to live according to this fear. We're not going to let fear consume us. We're not going to just go silently into the night. We're not going to be afraid anymore. We're actually just going to say, we only have one Lord. And his name is Jesus. And they actually hung that picture in the middle of this cathedral. I don't know if you can even imagine this. They hung that picture of Christ, the crucified Lord, and said, okay, Danielle, tell these guys about Jesus. And the first thing I told them is the first thing I told you. Jesus is sovereign. Jesus is bigger than. Jesus is greater than. We only have one leader, and his name is Jesus. But sometimes I wish we understood that Jesus is as different from as he is greater than any other God. Sometimes I wish we fully understood that Jesus is not only sovereign then, but he's also different then. You know, our kids know this, right? Like, our God is so big, so strong, and so much. Or we want to get more contemporary. We'll be like, our God is greater, our God is stronger. That's just our God is, right? Like, that's just different style, same song. Our God is stronger, our God is higher. I'm always like, yeah, I get it. He's bigger, he's higher, he's stronger, right? You too? Like, okay, it seems a little defensive sometimes. I'm just like, why all the fuss? Our God is greater than, I just want to say, like, also, our God is higher, our God is stronger, our God is greater, our God is different from any other God. This is so important. Because sometimes what happens when we even say something like that, like we only have one Führer and his name is Jesus, we think that Jesus is like Führer. Or sometimes when we say Jesus is Lord, not Caesar is Lord, we think Jesus is like Caesar. Or sometimes even in the telling of the Exodus story, we might Jesus is bigger than, God is bigger than Pharaoh, but then he becomes like Pharaoh. And you're like, that's not it. You're not quite capturing just how amazing and mind-blowing the person of Jesus is, because Jesus is greater than, yes, but also different from any other God. We actually have a word for that. The word's called holy. The word's called holy. Now, I remember a new Christian guy that was a drug addict for many years and had a lot of problems in his life, and he just got like an encounter with Jesus. Like literally Jesus knocked him over. Apostle Paulish, you know what I'm saying? Like just a full-on encounter with the living God. And then he went away and he just was like voraciously reading through the New Testament. Like he's just like, I gotta read the Bible. And so he's just like reading. He got to Revelation. He comes to see me. It's 5 days later after this big conversion experience he has. He comes to see me in my church office and he says to me, Danielle, I totally get it. I said, that's amazing, Gordo, because I've been reading the Bible for some time. And he goes, I just finished Revelation. I totally get it. I'm like, wow. Tell me everything, because I still don't I read the whole Left Behind series. I still don't understand. Like, what is going on in that book? And he said to me, well, Danielle, just think about it. This isn't rocket science. He says, just think about it. We're just going to take one look at Jesus, unfiltered look at Jesus, and we're going to go, holy. Holy. And we're going to take another look and just be like, holy. And then, like, we're just going to, like, compose ourselves and take another, and we're just going to be like, holy. And, like, he goes, we're just never going to stop saying, holy. And I was like, dude, I think you do have it. I think you do get it. Like, holy. And I was flashing back, to Exodus. I always flash back to Exodus. My youngest son's name is Moses. I wrote a book on the Exodus. I just like the Exodus is the story, isn't it? It's the narrative of the story. It's Jesus is the new deliverer that's going to set everybody free. And you remember Moses, he's washed up and he's in the desert and he sees a burning bush. Do you remember, this is Exodus 3 if you want to look it up later. Do you remember what he says when he sees the bush? Like, it wasn't a big deal to see a burning bush in the desert, by the way. That's not a big deal. If you guys are from California, you know this. Things catch fire. They do, right? They catch fire. Okay, so you know this is not a big deal to be in a desert and have something catch fire. Do you remember what actually drew Moses to the bush? Yeah, the bush wasn't burning up. The bush wasn't being destroyed. Now think about this. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's house. Was there anyone more powerful on the planet at the time? I mean, I have this image, like Pharaoh knew all the tricks. He knows all about power. He's the most powerful person on the planet. He knows all about a kind of power that takes, a kind of power that controls, a kind of power that oppresses, a kind of power that comes over, a kind of power that uses its source up in order to keep its power going. Right? That's what all pharaohs do. That's what all tyrants do. That's what all Führers do. That's the only kind of power that they know. That's why it's important that Jesus is powerful, way beyond them, but his power is as different from, as it is greater than. And Moses sees this bush on fire, but the bush is not being burnt up. And he literally says this. This is unbelievable. He goes, what is that? What is that? Because I have seen power. I have seen Pharaoh's inner court. I have seen what oppression does. I've actually, even Moses has participated in that, using the power that he understood, right? Even for good. But what did it end with? It ended with death, and it ended up with violence, and ended up with secrecy and fear, and like fleeing the country. That's what that power does. But he says, what is this? I've never seen this before. What is this kind of power that doesn't even need the bush for fuel? What is this kind of power that can actually give us a dynamic energy that doesn't consume us, that doesn't destroy us, that doesn't take? What is this kind of power that gives and doesn't just take? What is this power that actually lights up and doesn't put out? What is this power? Moses goes over to the bush and says, what's this? And then if you're a Marvel fan, there's a beautiful Easter egg in this story. Exodus 3, from the bush, God speaks. This is in theological circles, we call this a theophany. It's where Jesus shows up in the Old Testament. It's kind of cool because he's outside of time. You know that, right? And so he shows up in the, Dr. Strange it in the bush, just like portal there. And he says, it's me. It's me. It's God. This is me. You should take off your shoes. Because what you're encountering here is holy. And holy, literally, definition of holy, anybody? Yeah, it literally means other than. Like in essence, holy means like, we don't really know what this is, but it's important and sacred. Like it is different from. It is a category unto itself. It's different from any other thing around it. God's like, I am holy. When God says I am holy, what he's saying is I am different from. I am separate from. I don't work like Pharaoh. I don't work like Caesar. I don't work like empire power. I don't control. I mean, think about this in the context of who Jesus is. Jesus drives me crazy that Jesus will not possess people. Wouldn't it be easier? I mean, sometimes I'm even just like, Jesus, take the wheel. I'm making a mess. And Jesus is like, but you should turn right. No, Jesus will not possess. You know who possesses people? The devil. The devil possesses people. Evil possesses people. Hate possesses people. Takes over. Takes control. Power over. Oppresses. Fear. Violence. That's the work of the devil. Jesus, to a fault. And we're going to have a look at some of these instances as this week goes on. But Jesus literally, like just one example, a blind guy who's crying out all day long, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus, Son of David. People are trying to quiet him down. And he's like, forget it. He goes even louder. And then finally Jesus is like, would you just bring that guy to me? The guy gets brought to Jesus. He's blind. He's been crying out for mercy all day. And do you know what Jesus says to him? What would you like me to do? What? What would you like me to do for you? He says to this guy who's blind and been crying out for mercy all day. Why would he do that? Why would Jesus ask that man what he would like him to do for him before he healed him? Because what Jesus is doing is he's partnering with. What Jesus is doing is he's participating in giving social agency back. What Jesus is doing is restoring his humanity and his sight at the same time. What Jesus is doing is demonstrating that not only is he more powerful so that he can heal, but even the way that he does it is holy. It's different from. And people look and say, what is this? What is this? Don't you want to live that way? Don't you want to live in such a way that people go, what's that? I know power. I know power. I know control. I know dominance, right? I know ego. Oh, wow, we know that all day long. That's familiar to us. But this, what is that? That's holy. So the disciples are hanging out with Jesus after his resurrection. And they're still, this is Acts chapter 1. And they say to Jesus is about to ascend, and he's excited because he's like, I cannot wait for you guys to have the Holy Spirit. Like the Spirit of Christ. Like me, my essence, my love, my power. I can't wait for you guys to get it. Because then that's going to help you understand. It's going to help you speak. And it's going to help you live the way that I've lived, which is not just greater than any other power, but totally different from any other power. And when you live this way, everyone's going to go, whoa, I see. Even in that moment, the disciples are saying, like, so is this the time where we're going to, like, fight Rome? Right? We're so conditioned to these like natural understandings of power. Is this the time where we're going to overthrow Rome and then we're going to rule the nations and then everyone will know who's boss? And Jesus is like, oh gosh, we're there again? That's the only power your imagination can capture? That's it? A power that's dominant, a power that takes, a power that controls, a power that pays back? That's it? That's all you've got? And Jesus says, no, guys, check this out. Just wait for me in Jerusalem because you're going to receive power. Now, I want you to tell me how many of you have heard that word power means dunamis? Nobody? And dunamis, root word, dynamite. That's because you heard this preached by a man. You always like blowing stuff up, don't you? Always about the dynamite. You know, that same root, dunamis, can mean dynamite. Yes, explosive power. Okay, we get it. You win. It also means dynamic. It also means dynamic, sustainable energy. Think about the burning bush. Think about what's happening at the burning bush is not explosive. It's not a one-time, you're going to have power, boom, and it's going to work. It's not explosive Iraq mission. That's not what's happening. It's not about blowing stuff up. It's about a sustainability. It's about a dynamic energy that can light things up and not go out. How are the disciples going to actually be that? Be a representation of Jesus in a culture that is against them, in a culture that is like trying to push them down? How are they going to do this when they're persecuted? How are they going to do this? And we're going to explore some of this stuff together, but how you can represent Jesus with the power that is not only greater than the world, but totally different from the world. And not only is that power esoterically out here, look around, the spaciousness of Christ is so big. Not only is that power something we can step into, but that power is something that can be with us and longs to be with us. That power is in the person of Jesus. Kiss the Son. It's in intimacy. It's in connection. It's in embrace. As Jesus comes closer, as the Spirit of Christ animates us and lights us up, far from consuming us and destroying us, it will give us a dynamic, sustainable energy to show the world what God is like. I was speaking to a theologian practitioner in India just the other day, Jayakumar Christian. He wrote a book that seminaries use called The God of the Empty-Handed. He's worked with the poorest of the poor in India his whole life. The guy's amazing. And I said to him, what are we going to do? How does surrender look like in this season? Like, what is the church going to do around the globe? Like, what is the world going to do right now? Everybody's so afraid. Everything's so shifting. There's wars and rumors of wars. And, and he just said, oh, Danielle, this is easy. Ask me a harder one. He said, if the world wants to see God, they only need to look at the church. And I was like, oh, no. Is it any wonder that God's never going to give up on the church? Is it any wonder that God wants to give this renewed passion, connection, intimacy, relationship, understanding, encounter of his power that has the capacity? By the way, Acts 1:8, you will have the power to be my witnesses. The word witness is not just to tell other people about Jesus. The word witness is the same root word as martyr. I hate to break it to you, but you're going to have the same power that raised Christ from the dead, which is the same power that enabled Christ to choose to surrender his life for others, to give his life up so that others might live, including us. What does that power look like? I want some of that. I want some of that. Do you? Yeah. Yeah, so Jesus, we're asking right now, Well, maybe we're admitting first that we lack power. Maybe like millions of brothers and sisters meeting in AA rooms across the nation right now, we're just going to say this. We admit it. We can't do it ourselves. I can't do it myself. I don't have this kind of power in myself. I run out of it by 8 a.m. Power to forgive others? Are you kidding? Has anybody ever slandered you online? I'm just like going to kill them. That's what I wanted. I'm like out, and then I just have to go, oh, I see. I don't have this power to forgive. I don't have this power to do things a different way. I don't have this power to overcome evil with good. I don't have this power to lay down my rights for the rights of other people. I lack this power, so I don't have this power. So this like little tiny doorway called I can't. Jesus said this, but blessed are those who are poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Oh, poor in spirit. Oh, those people who've come to the end of themselves, those people who don't have the power to do what it is, those people who actually finally admit that they don't have what it takes. That's where you access that power. That. Oh, yeah, that's easy. Is it? That's easy. Okay, let's start there. I admit I don't have that power, but that you do. And so here's what I want us to do. I just want us to pray this prayer of surrender. Surrender is that I can't. Surrender is that opening to the lordship, the grandness. I want you to stand with me right now and do this posture with me. This is a daily prayer I do every day. I'm going to teach you a little bit of it throughout the week, and hopefully by the end, it might be helpful to you in your walk with Jesus as well. So first, I hold my fists up like this, like I'm about to fight. Okay, and if you want to repeat this after me, you're more than welcome to. You want to do it quietly, that's up to you. But I feel like you're American, so you might want to do it out loud. Right? Okay, I admire you for that. All right. So I confess my natural human inclination is to fight for it, to defend myself, to make something happen, to prove it, to fight for it. But I choose, as a follower of Jesus, a posture of surrender. I open to the lordship of Christ. I give you control. I need you. I need your power. And I need your love. And I surrender to you today. You can have all there is of me. My worries, my sins, my burdens, my gifts, my blessings, all of me. Amen. Amen.